Hey friends, welcome to She's At It Again. And today we're making spaghetti Amor. This is like spaghetti, but it's a casserole. Don't tell your kids. And in fact, if there's somebody in your house that just doesn't like the taste, or they think they don't like the taste of peppers, onions, things like that, you can puree these as smooth as they can go, especially the mushrooms in here too. You can do that too. I would recommend leaving them in small pieces or in chunks because I like the texture. But again, if you have kids or if you have someone in your house that thinks they don't like it, but it's not an allergy thing, they just think they don't like it, I hear you. I hear you. But the flavor of this is so good. Now, I'll tell you a little story behind this. Back when my husband and I were very first married, we had friends, and they invited us over to their house for dinner. It was one of those things you kind of, you're new to it as a married couple. You didn't get invited places when you're single, so, I didn't anyway. But as a married couple, this sweet couple invited us over to their house. Of course, neither of us had kids yet, and she fixed this casserole. Now, keep in mind, I'm from the country. I'd only had one casserole in my whole life, and I've already done a video for that. It's a Mexican casserole. That's just what we called it. But somebody else made it for us. It didn't come from our household. But this was the second casserole I'd ever had in my whole life. But I fell in love with it, and I've made it so many times. I almost wish I had $1 for every time I would have made this, and I'd just buy my own island somewhere and live on it. But this really is very good. It uses minimal ingredients, and most of them, there's only like one spice in this, and it's garlic powder. So it doesn't have a lot of funky ingredients that you don't know what they are, and it's just really good. It's substantial. When I told my husband that I was going to make a video of this today, he said, "Oh, that's a good one." He always looks through them and goes, "I don't know why you don't have more viewers and more comments. These are so good." But I don't think he gets how many cooking shows there are on YouTube. But I'm here just to help people who want to learn. I'm not here to become famous or make money off. Well, that'd be great to make money off YouTube. Wouldn't that be fun? But that's not my motive for this. My motive is to help people find really good meals, new things that they've never had before, and to make better choices in their food. So I have a pound of organic, just ground beef. I'm browning here in the skillet. And I have salted water back here boiling for my pasta. And in that ground beef, I'm going to add about a half cup of chopped onion. And about a third to a half a cup of green bell pepper. Now, normally green bell peppers are not my favorite. I prefer the red ones or the yellow ones just because they're sweet. Green ones kind of have this, like I'm not really ready yet. And that's really what they are. They're not really ready yet. But they have a flavor to them that just enhances this dish. So go with the green ones. Don't use the red ones. And we're going to let those cook. In this pot of water I have boiling back here, it is just perfect. I am going to put a half of a pound of pasta in there. Now, I have angel hair. This is just what I had in the pantry. I thought I had regular spaghetti, but I didn't. And angel hair is fine. You know what the difference in spaghetti and angel hair pasta is? Angel hair skinnier. That's all it is. But being skinnier, it cooks faster. So I'm going to get about half of this box. You just got to kind of eyeball it here. If you have a scale, you can use it. And I have one, but am I using it? No. Just something else to get out. But we're going to take and break this up into smaller pieces. And I've taken it and broken it up to, I'd say that's about 2 inches long. Break them into smaller pieces because when you go to serve this, or when you go to get out a serving for yourself, you don't want to pick up a noodle that's connected from one end of the pan to the other. You just want what's in the spoon that you're trying to get out. And this is the easiest way that we know of to do that, is just break up your spaghetti ahead of time. All right, all broken up like that. We're going to add this to our salted water. Whoops, get back over there. It decided to just jump in the skillet. Even though they're all going to the same place, I don't want the noodles in the skillet. I want them in that pan. That one's desperately trying to escape. All right, let me give that a little stir. I could have used a bigger pan, but I kind of wanted you to be able to see the water in there. If I use a solid pan that you can't see through, then I'm just basically telling you, here's some water, I'm putting the pasta in it, but it's just for visual. All right, and because it fits well on that burner back there. Okay, here comes our 1/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. Also have a small can of mushroom stems and pieces. Doesn't have to be the fancy kind, just stems and pieces. These just happen to be organic, and I like these, but I can't find them at too many stores. I have to wait until I go to my Kroger, which is in a different town down the road. Now, when I first had this casserole, of course, back in the day, I had no idea. You know, I barely knew what cream of mushroom soup was. Had never used it in anything except for that one casserole that I'd had and I learned how to make. But I didn't realize what ingredients were. I just thought, oh, well, it's got to be edible or they wouldn't be able to sell it. Well, that was my thinking back then. But back when we were served this, of course, it had a can of cream of mushroom soup in it. But changed up the recipe a bit. Let's make better choices here. We can make our own. It's less expensive. You know what the ingredients are. There's no flavor enhancers, and it's better for you. So once we get this cooked and the onions and the peppers are softening, the onions become transparent, then we're going to move this to a different skillet and cook our cream of mushroom soup over here. If you've not seen that in another video, I'm sure I've done it. In the Mexican casserole video, I'm sure I did the cream of mushroom soup. But just a refresher course, we'll just kind of breeze through it, but I'll show you how that's done. Super simple. And I'm not just saying that because I cook a lot. It's really super simple. Another thing, when you cook your ground beef in this skillet, this is a size 8. I don't know. Let me measure this and see how wide it is. I'm pretty sure that's not 8 inches. It's just a size 8. This is a 10-inch skillet. So cook it in a skillet that's big enough, or even in a Dutch oven. You could use a Dutch oven for this. That's fine. It's not necessarily nothing's really too big. But make it big enough to where eventually you're going to be adding this pasta plus the cream of mushroom soup that you make back into this. So make sure it'll hold all of that. You're going to mix it together in this, then we'll pour it in our casserole dish. But you don't want a tiny skillet to start out with and a big pan for the pasta. I mean, you could always add it to the pasta, but you have to add everything into one pan. So make sure at least one of those pans is big enough to hold it all. Once we put it in our casserole dish, we will top it with some sharp cheddar. Now, we're not going to have this tonight. This is actually staying at my house. This is for my family. But we're not having this tonight. We'll probably have this tomorrow night because I have my mentoring group, our tabletop group, at someone else's house. So we won't be eating this here tonight. We'll be eating it here, but not tonight. I'll be serving this with a salad. The video that I made for that is called My Favorite Salad and Salad Dressing. I'll be making that. And I'll also be making probably garlic toast out of some homemade sourdough, but you can use whatever bread you have. There is a video, and we'll try to link that video so you can watch that if you'd like. It's a real quick video, just a few seasonings to mix together to make a really good garlic toast. It's not just butter and garlic powder. There's more to the flavor than that, but it's not difficult. It's not costly. It's not time consuming, but it is one that you'll want to keep those spices on hand so you can make it often. Okay, that angel hair is already cooked. It is done. All right, I'm going to turn the burner off on that. Put our mushrooms in here. I did not have a real small can of tomato sauce, so this is a 15-ounce can, so I'm going to pour 8 ounces of it out into a measuring cup and add to this because this calls for 8 ounces of tomato sauce. I shared this recipe with a friend one time, and they said, I made it. And good, that's great. I love hearing when people try recipes and it's something they really like and will do again. But they said, I didn't have tomato sauce. I don't keep tomato sauce, but I had some tomato soup in the pantry and I just used it. Because tomato soup is a whole lot of sugar. I guess they liked it, but I wouldn't recommend tomato soup. It's not the same. Okay, I'll store what's left over in a jar and label it, put a date on it, so I'll actually know what it is and how long it's been in there, and we'll use it for something else. Okay, I'm not going to put this measuring cup in the sink yet to wash because I'll need to measure out my milk for my cream of mushroom soup in just a bit. So I'll put that aside. Give this a stir and set it off the burner. We'll put this saucepan on the burner. And we need a couple or 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And I have about 3 fresh mushrooms chopped up. You can see about what size they are. Like I said, I like the chunkiness of it, but if you have someone in your household that doesn't care for the texture of mushrooms or think they don't like mushrooms and it's not necessarily an allergy issue, then you can puree them just as finely as you need to. I should have got my oil a little bit hotter, but that's okay. It'll still work. Oops. And I had the big burner on. I need the small burner, not everything on the whole stovetop. When you feel the heat coming up around the pan, you know something's going on. I didn't need all this space heated up. I just need small space heated up. So we'll get that going. I'll need about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you'll need 8 ounces of milk. And again, basically all we're doing is making our own homemade cream of mushroom soup. I'm going to go ahead and drain this pasta. Notice I didn't set the pasta back on that burner over there because I don't want the residual heat from that is going to scorch what's on the bottom, and I don't want that. Yep, get off there. Just get your mushrooms softened a bit in that oil. We're going to add about 3 tablespoons of flour. If you want this to be gluten-free and you're using a gluten-free pasta, then you're welcome to use a rice flour in this. Or an all-purpose gluten-free flour, I guess, would be a good thickener as well. Okay, I want you to be able to see what this looks like. Kind of looks like a paste. Put just a tiny bit more flour in there. Okay, so this is what it looks like, if you can see that. Keep our heat going and just slowly add our milk to it. It doesn't matter that the tomato sauce was in this cup, even though very little of it's coming out in the milk, but it's all going in the same recipe, so don't panic. Good lands. I'm just making such a mess today. I'm just sloshing things all out. All right, I'm gonna let that cook and thicken for a bit. It's cooking on pretty low. I have it on medium low. In the meantime, I'm gonna look for a casserole dish to put it in. That's a good one. We also need to shred about a cup and a half or 6 ounces or however much cheese you like. The sharp cheddar. I don't normally have this big chunk out to grate, but last night we went to a Mexican potluck for our small group Bible study, and I needed cheese, so I just grabbed that one. Don't use pre-shredded cheese in this. Just don't do it. If you've ever seen one of my videos before and I've had cheese, I say that every single time, but just as a friendly reminder, pre-shredded cheese has a coating on it of cellulose, and whatever the source of that is, it keeps the cheese from sticking together. That's the purpose in using the cellulose in that, so it won't stick together in the bag. It doesn't look like a blob of cheese. It looks pretty, and they're kind of dancing around when you shake the bag, and it just looks so fresh and beautiful. But that cellulose also prevents the cheese from melting properly. And on a secondary note, I don't know that I want to be eating cellulose. So, get you a block of cheese. It's less expensive normally to buy blocks of cheese. Invest in a good grater and enjoy the process and build up some muscle in the meantime. Or if you have kids, it's a great job for them. This is Zoe's sign to come running because I want to show you what's at my feet right here. Yep. She knows what I'm doing. All right, if I don't use all this cheese, which is really doubtful, then I'll just put the rest of it back in the container that I had the shredded cheese in from last night. I made black bean soup and we had cheese and sour cream to go with it. My friend Bon Bon brought the sour cream, so he did good. Only because he didn't know what to bring to the dinner. He's single and he doesn't really cook a lot. And I asked him what he was bringing to dinner and he said he didn't know. And I said, you know what? I'm down to about a half a cup of sour cream and I really don't want the kind you dip a spoon into. I'd rather have the squeezy container of it. And immediately he said, I can do that. So he showed up with squeezy sour cream and I was quite excited. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, our cream of mushroom soup is thickening up nicely. I'm hoping you can see that on the video. But this is what it looks like. Isn't that pretty? Now we're not quite finished with it yet. But I am going to turn the burner off. I'm going to set it away from the burner so it doesn't just continue cooking. But we also need about a tablespoon of cream cheese to add to that. Cream of mushroom soup is great, but it's fabulous with a tablespoon of cream cheese in it. And of course I realized this after I wrote an entire cookbook several years ago. That was pretty frustrating. But I try to go back and tell people about this as much as I can. If I see somebody and they say, I've gone to your cookbooks and I use it all the time, I'm like, great, let me tell you something. Anytime it talks about making a homemade version of cream of mushroom soup for a recipe, add a tablespoon of cream cheese to it. Without exception, every single time. Add the cream cheese. Okay, I'm not measuring, I'm just eyeballing it. And there we go. We'll stir this in and get it to melt. Just make sure you get all the big blobs of it melted and stirred in. Otherwise, somebody's going to get a big surprise when they bite into a big piece of cream cheese. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just unexpected. It'd be nicer if it just got mixed in well. Okay. If I can turn this way so you can actually see what I'm doing. We stir this together. And then we're going to add our pasta and hope it doesn't overflow out of the pan. Trust me when I say I've had that happen before, which should come as no surprise. To look behind me and make sure I got everything off the island, because I had everything out there that I needed to go in here. I don't want to get to the end of the recipe and go, oh, you know what I forgot? Because I've done that enough times too. Okay. Plop. I would say if you're new to making something like this, just put it in a Dutch oven to cook it, something like a big pot. That way you don't have to worry about it overflowing and going, oh, I'm so bad at cooking, I just make a big mess. Because honestly, that's just part of the experience of cooking. You figure out what will and won't fit into a pan. And you're not a bad cook if you spill things. You just are learning to be spatial in knowing how much fits in what pan. Okay, basically this is our casserole. Now, if you wanted to just top this with cheese and it's in a big enough to skillet where it's not going to overflow in your oven, by all means go for it. But I'm going to transfer mine to a casserole dish and top it with cheese because I'm afraid mine would overflow. I just love the cheese on the top of this. Maybe I love it too much, but I don't want it overflowing into my oven. All right, let's go over and put this in a casserole dish. That skillet's pretty heavy. Your dish does not need to be buttered or oiled unless you just want to do it. If it's something that you think it might stick to, by all means go ahead, but there is enough oil in this from the meat and from the cream of mushroom soup that we made to where it should not stick to the pan. Somebody commented one time, they were so sweet, they said, thank you for always cleaning out the pan when you empty it out. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, you're welcome. That's really kind to compliment somebody. But then I read on somebody else's, I was watching someone else's YouTube video. I watched Becky from Acre Homestead, and somebody was telling her, thank you so much for scraping out the pan. That drives me crazy when I watch shows and they just leave so much residual food in the pan. And I thought, yep, it's bothering people as much as it bothers me, I guess. So all right. If you get somebody to wash your dishes for you, this casserole is just effortless. But I will say, you got to dirty a few dishes sometimes when you make good stuff. All right, this is about how much cheese this calls for, about 6 ounces. So a cup is about 4 ounces, so a cup and a half is about 6 ounces, but we're going to add more than 6 ounces because, again, we like cheese. And I would not recommend anything less than sharp cheddar. You have mild cheddar, you have medium cheddar, you have sharp, and then you have extra sharp. And I would recommend sharp or extra sharp, but nothing less than that. For some reason, the flavor just is not as prevalent if you use mild or medium cheddar. I've tried it before thinking it's cheese, no big deal, but it just wasn't the same. I couldn't put my finger on it, and then I realized it was the difference in the sharpness of the cheese. Okay, so this is our casserole. Now, if I were serving this tonight, I would pop it in the oven on 350 for about 30 to 40 minutes, and it would be done. It would be bubbly. It'd be fabulous. But I'm not. This is going to be served probably tomorrow night, so I'm going to let this cool down to room temperature before I put it in my refrigerator because I don't want it having a nasty fight with the refrigerator. Let it cool off to room temperature. I'm going to cover it with parchment and then foil because otherwise the cheese will stick to the foil when you heat it up. Then I'll place it in the refrigerator and we'll heat it up tomorrow for dinner, but I'm going to video this when we serve it so you can see how luscious it looks when we get ready to eat it. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this. The video, the recipe for this will be in the description of the video. If that's what you're looking for, fast forward to it and just read the recipe if you want to. Fast forward to what it looks like at the end and then just read the recipe. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. Thanks, guys.